You ever feel like you're in a constant battle with yourself? You know exactly what you need to do, but you just can't seem to make it stick. Well, I want you to forget everything you've ever heard about discipline and willpower. Today, we're going to dive into a really powerful science-backed framework that explains why you might not have a discipline problem at all.
I mean, think about it. Every time a diet fails, or a big project stalls out, or that New Year's resolution is just gone by February, what do? We blame ourselves, right? We say we lack willpower, we need to be tougher, more disciplined. But what if that whole idea is just wrong? What if the problem isn't your character, but your actual chemistry?
Okay, so let's get right into the core of this. The common belief is that when we fail, it's a moral issue, it's a discipline problem. But the reality, according to neuroscience, is that it's actually a production problem. Your brain has this sort of internal pharmacy, and it's simply not manufacturing enough of the neurochemicals you need to stay motivated, to focus, and to have self-control. It's a biological issue, not some kind of personal failure.
To really get this, we have to start with your brain's hardware. We're talking about the fundamental neurochemical pillars that basically run the whole show. They dictate your ability to perform, to chase after your goals, and to regulate your own behavior.
Now, this whole complex system can really be simplified into three key players. First up, you've got dopamine. That's what drives your motivation and your pursuit of things. Then there's serotonin, which is all about managing your impulse control. And finally, norepinephrine, which creates this state of calm alertness. These three chemicals, working together, are the foundation for any kind of high performance.
So let's start with the big one, dopamine. You know, in neuroscience, they use three key words to really describe what it does: motivation, direction, and pursuit. This is the chemical that literally makes you want to get up off the couch and go after something.
And this brings us to a huge misconception. We've all heard dopamine called the pleasure chemical, but that's not really the whole story. Its true role is as the pursuit chemical. It's released in anticipation of a reward, which is what drives you forward and makes the effort itself feel good. It's the engine of your ambition, not just the prize at the end.
Okay, next up is serotonin. Its keywords are regulation, steadiness, and restraint. You can think of this one as your brain's internal braking system, or maybe like an emotional shock absorber.
Here we go again with another common myth. Serotonin isn't just the happiness chemical. It's actually your impulse control system. It's the thing that lets you delay gratification, to pause before you react, and to just stay steady when things get stressful. If you don't have enough serotonin, even tiny little frustrations can feel like a total crisis.
And our third pillar is norepinephrine, which is all about alertness, vitality, and resilience. This chemical creates a state of calm readiness. It lets you face challenges without feeling totally overwhelmed. It's what separates feeling energized from feeling just plain anxious.
So, you might be wondering, why would these chemical levels be low in the first place? Well, it turns out that things like psychological stress and not getting enough sleep, they burn through the essential raw materials your brain needs to produce this stuff. We're talking about B vitamins, magnesium, the things that are absolutely crucial for making serotonin and dopamine. So you could be eating a perfectly healthy diet, but if you're chronically stressed, your brain can still be starved of the very building blocks it needs to function right.
Okay, so that's the hardware, the chemical factory. But what tells that factory what to make and when to make it? Well, that's the job of the software. And that software is your identity, which basically acts as your brain's master operating system.
This quote right here is the key to understanding, well, pretty much everything about why changing is so darn hard. Your brain has a prime directive, and it's not to make you happy or successful. It's to keep you consistent with who you've been in the past. To your brain, consistency equals safety. That's it.
This totally reframes how we think about habits and willpower. They aren't these fixed traits you either have or you don't. They're just the outputs of your identity. Your identity is really just your brain's predictive script for how you'll act when the pressure's on. And it's all based on your past behavior. So you don't have habits, you have an identity that runs a habitual program.
So this brings us to the big question, right? The core paradox. If your identity is just a script, why does it feel almost physically impossible to rewrite it? Why does trying to change feel so deeply uncomfortable, sometimes even painful?
And here's the wild part. When you act in a way that contradicts your established identity, like when the unhealthy person actually goes to the gym, or the procrastinator starts a project early, your brain literally interprets this as a threat to your survival. That feeling of anxiety and resistance, that's a real physiological survival response designed to yank you back to the familiar, safe identity it knows.
So, if we can't just bulldoze our way through this deep-seated survival response, how in the world do we actually rewrite our core programming? Well, it turns out we have to use the brain's own mechanisms against itself.
And this is where it gets really powerful. The fastest way to trigger an identity shift is through 3 incredibly potent emotional levers: embarrassment, disgust, and aversion. Now, this is not about self-loathing or beating yourself up. It's about making your old patterns so emotionally unacceptable that your brain is forced to find a new, safer identity. For instance, instead of just feeling bad about skipping a workout, you connect it to the deep embarrassment of not keeping a promise to yourself. You create an aversion to that old behavior.
Let's look at how this plays out in the real world. You have to upgrade your self-talk. Phrases like, "I'm working on it," or "I'm trying to change," they're permissive. They keep the door open to that old identity. Instead, you need these decisive, identity-shifting statements. Thinking that version of me was unacceptable, or that behavior was beneath me, that creates a clean break. It signals to your brain that the old script is no longer safe to run.
Okay, so you start applying these principles, but how do you actually know if it's working? How can you confirm that the identity shift is really taking hold, that the upgrade is successful?
Well, there are 3 really clear signs to look for. First, your old patterns start to feel genuinely awkward and foreign, almost like you're wearing someone else's clothes. Second, the excuses you used to tell yourself suddenly sound, well, just foolish. And third, the routines that supported your old identity now feel strange and completely pointless. When you feel more uncomfortable going back than you do moving forward, you know you've made it.
Ultimately, all of this, it all comes down to one core principle. You can't just think your way into a new you. You can't just visualize it. You have to take action. Your behavior is what changes your neurochemistry. Your behavior is what rewrites the script. You have to act your way into a new way of thinking and being. And that's really the framework. It shifts the blame away from a lack of willpower and puts it where it belongs, on a problem of production and programming. And it gives you the tools to address both your brain's hardware and its software. So the only real question left is, what part of your old software is ready for an upgrade?